So now I want to go into metrics on how we'd measure the success of separate portfolios. So the metrics that I would want to look at are one, activation. These are the buckets, by the way. So what we're going to do is we can write buckets, like the headers of the metrics, and then we can individually categorize them. And then the other one's going to be acquisition. Retention. And monetization. So first let's actually first start with acquisition because that makes the most sense. So I think what we could do is track it. Metrics we could track are number of pre-signups. So the number who sign up ahead of time, we could offer this feature on like a waiting list type period. And that's typically the release style that Robinhood goes with. So I think that's a good one. I think another one is number of first-time users of the feature. For activation, I think it's going to be number of daily users. And daily doesn't have to mean every day. It could just mean not number of daily active users. And daily doesn't have to actually mean every day. What it could mean is basically what we define as daily. So regularly could be weekly, could be monthly. People who are using it on a regular basis. And that way, that's what I mean by number of daily users. I think we could also do number of portfolios created. That would be a good one. And then moving on to retention, I think one metric that we should measure is churn. And we could define that once we launch the feature, but ultimately churn would most likely be like creates a portfolio and then deletes it. I think would be a really good one. I think we would also be looked at churn for that feature, and then churn for app. I think we could be looking at the more people who start using the feature than stop, and then overall for the app, because if we look back at our main problem, it's too easy to trade. What we're trying to do is prevent people from downloading the app and leaving. So looking at the overall churn of the app would be the metric that would be really targeting that problem. And then I think finally for retention, we could be looking at percentage of users on app. So what is our total number of users on the app that are using it? And then for monetization, I don't think this is going to be a huge piece for this one because ultimately with here we're targeting keeping users on platform, but I think it'd be really good to look at revenue per user. Because in the end, we're a business, Robinhood's trying to make money, and if we're able to show that this feature increases the amount of revenue that Robinhood's making per user, I think that'd show that we're on a really great track. So if I could only pick one metric, well, it depends what we're picking the metric for. So if we're picking the metric for the feature, like we just built this feature, what is my North Star? What matters the most to me as someone who pushed this feature out? I'm gonna care about the churn for the feature because ultimately what this is gonna look at is ultimately like what's our conversion. So if we get 100 people to sign up for it and all 100 are actively using this feature a year later, that's what matters to me because ultimately we don't want to make features in Robinhood that aren't done well, right? We want to create features that add value. You know, if we create a feature that adds value to 10% of our platform, but the other 90% who don't need it, don't want it, never have to look at it, it never interferes with their experience, I think we can say we did a job well done. And I think that would be my North Star metric for that scenario. But if I had to choose a metric for basically too easy to trade, like what is our, it's too easy to trade, then I would say it's churn for the app. Because with it saying it's too easy to trade, our goal is to stop people from just downloading Robinhood and deleting it. So that would be my North Star metric in that case. And that would be the one that I'd be checking every day to really see that we're decreasing the amount of churn on our platform. If I only had to pick one, I would probably definitely be looking at a retention metric for the feature, just because my goal as a product manager at Robinhood, or my goal is to improve the user experience. And I really want to know that I create a feature that's valuable for users, because if we had the entire platform of Robinhood sign up for our feature and then 90% of them stop using it, I think that's a much worse case scenario than having 10% sign up and all 10% staying, because that shows that we created something that's valuable, whereas the other case, it shows that 90% of them think we just created something that's just going to slow down the rest of their experience. So I would go with the churn for the feature as my number one North Star metric. And even if we only monitored people in that feature, we know that the people that are staying on that feature, that once you get on, you're not leaving. So that's why I'd go for churn for that feature. If you'd like, I can go into a bit about launch strategy. And just what I want to touch about on that is, I think first, if I was to launch this feature, one, I would just start with kind of customer interviews and surveys to really hone down why people are leaving your platform and to see if this is solving an actual problem. So I'd really want to just verify that. In terms of, that's how I verify the problem. But if I were to launch it, I'd most likely start with a pre-sign up list so we could see how many people were interested in the feature. We could do this in the form of a survey, such as if you could rank the top 5 features you want to come to Robinhood. And then after that, I would most likely roll this feature out to a select group of users, possibly starting with users that we know signed up, left, then came back, and then targeting that group. I think that's where I would start, and then expand the user base from there to really measure the effect on that smaller group first. And then just to explain it to you so you understand, pretty much the way the UI would look is, this is Robinhood, we've got our menu up here, we've got our graphs and stuff. We got our graph here, we've got our news here. What would happen is you click this menu, and then pretty much what it would do is it would open the menu, and then you'd be able to select like portfolios here, and then we could give the user the options portfolio 1, portfolio 2, portfolio 3, and we can include a settings button up here and allow them to kind of toggle which one we want in order, and whatever is number 1 could be the one that's here. If we click it, it would go there. If we click 3, what I mean by that, just to clarify, is we could say 1 would be our default, so when we logged into what we'd see, but if we went to this page and clicked 2, it would take us back to this screen, and then it'd be 2. We'd have to redo the steps, go to 3, click on 3, go back. That's just one way we could do it. I did this incredibly quick, so I don't think it's the best user way. It's just really to explain like what I'm thinking about when designing this feature. Ultimately, we probably want a better way for people to, once they get to this page, that they could like see this, then go back and see this, so they don't have to restart. That would probably be very cumbersome. Maybe we could like put options on the top. I think that's one way. So like default just shows 1, go to this page, click 2, and then we'd show the page, but we'd also have like 1, 2, 3. So now we can change the options we see it for. But yeah, that's just one UI possibility. I just wanted to sketch that out so you have a general idea. But yeah, that is my feature for Robinhood. And I would love, as a user, to have separate portfolios. So then I wouldn't have to have like 5 or 6 trading accounts. Let's talk about that Robinhood question. That was the exact interview that I used 4 times throughout my recruiting, and I got to the next round every time with that interview. So I think that's the best one out of all the examples that it really represents a good product interview. And one of the reasons I think I did really well with that interview is because if you noticed, I bring a lot about I show user empathy by relating to myself. I'm a user of that product, so it's easy. With other interviews, it can be really difficult because you have to empathize with someone who isn't yourself. You have to put themselves in your shoes. And I think that's what makes it hard. Kind of like the next question, design a phone for a blind person, where you can see that I struggle a bit more trying to empathize with the user because I'm not in their place. And that's why I like this question, because I think I do it very well in the sense that I can empathize with the user. Are my solutions amazing? I like to think that the separate portfolio one's a pretty good idea. The retirement accounts is like iffy. That's definitely my weakest of the 3, and I've always known that. But it's nice because usually when I do this question too, like I relate to the person, I talk to them about Robinhood if they know about it. My first round interview with Microsoft, I did that. Me and the dude started talking about personal finance and how much he loved personal finance. So this was a great question for them. And so when you pick a product to do your favorite product, pick something that you actually use. It's generally your favorite product. I originally started doing this with a product that I just picked that because I didn't think anyone else would pick. Try and do something a bit unique. You don't want to do something that everyone's going to do. Try and pick something unique to you that you can really relate to and show your interviewer your interest and just how you're different.